Right, next batch of expansion slot spoilers from Super Slam. We have lined up the leaves for Earth Wizard, Hunter or Hunted for Assassin, and Backspin Thrust for Mechanologist. So none of these are specs, unfortunately, right? So no use for Cheyenne, but they are also kind of specific cards, right? So obviously it being Earth Wizard means light up the leaves is for Verdance, but can be used if we get another Earth Wizard down the track, right? Hunter or Hunted is contract focused, and the way it interacts is very much Arachne Huntsman focused. And then Backspin Thrust being Cog focused is kind of Puffin focused, since, Cogs haven't been widely adapted to the other mechanologists, I believe, right? But before we get into the cards, for the sake of keeping track, right? So last week we got the Olympia specs, the four pieces of equipment. They do come in marbles, and they do look pretty awesome as a set of marbles. So if you have all four equipped, you have a nice Olympia in a triumphant pose, right? So that is kind of cool. But with these four marvels, it means that we know 12 out of the 14 marvels. So 4 adults, 4 young heroes, and then the 4 Olympia specs, leaving 2 unknown, right? So maybe some tokens, maybe equipment could be cool, right? But 12 out of the 14 marvels for Super Slam have therefore effectively been spoiled. On the expansion slot side of things, 10 out of 31. Questionable, right? We could call it 9. It's whether or not you think bait is classified as an expansion slot card. So I would most likely assume it is in the token slot. Well, token slot is the expansion slot, but the main token slot, right? So that it's not that hard to find. But yeah, LSS, the way they've handled what they dubbed new cards before, I can definitely see Bates, the token created by the Riptide spec, being an expansion slot card. So either way, it's around 1/3 of the expansion slot is what we've seen so far. So a nice, good spread of cards as well, right? Assassin, Olympia, Kasai, Riptide for the specs. Then now we have Earth Wizard and Mechanologist. So yeah, keep it going, right? We wanna see the majority of classes hit with this immense 31 expansion slot cards. Now, for the cards, right? We'll start off with Light Up the Leaves. So, a nice red 3 cost, 3 block Earth Wizard action. Deals 6 arcane damage to any target, and then it has the instant effect of discard this and an Earth card to prevent the next 6 arcane damage target source would deal this turn. So, to clarify the wording there, target source means that you can select any source. It doesn't have to be a card on the stack ready to resolve, so this works against anyone. You don't have to be in specifically a wizard matchup, right? So you could declare their hero about to deal damage to you, even if they're not going to, a weapon, for instance, or any other card on the chain, right? So, yeah, Line Up the Leaves is effectively a combination of Fruits of the Forest and Burn Bear. So, Fruits of the Forest being a nice, easy earth discard to stockpile your graveyard, and Burn Bear just being a nice, big, arcane damaging attack. So, the fact that you can now take Burn Bear and Light Up the Leaves as your big 3 cost 6 arcane damage powerhouses is definitely really, really nice. But, I mean, the main big purpose of Light Up the Leaves is you find it turn 1 and you're super happy, right? So if you find this turn 1 with another Earth card, then you're able to get 2 Earth cards effectively into your graveyard, right? Because you can just use its instant discard, similar to how basically Fruits of the Forest works, right? It's taken so that you can most likely hit it on your turn 1 and again stockpile your graveyard so that you can speed up to Verdance's ability, and then you can combo off. So in terms of, for instance, the Rampant Growth combo, right? Effectively, what this means is you don't have to OTK as much, right? Because you have these bigger hitting cards to chip away your opponent and then also to work with the rampant growth, right? The ampage. So yeah, having another set of 6 arcane damage action cards is definitely really nice for Wizard. There is that somewhat of a use case, right? Where you are in the mirror match or against another Wizard and the 6 arcane prevention can come in handy, right? So basically, if you're AB, this then goes on top of that. So you could potentially shut down the rampant growth amp, right? I haven't done the math in my head. How much is it usually? God, it's 6 from the healing pots, and then 1 from itself, so 7. So yeah, double ramp growth would be a 14. So if you're preventing 9 of that, it could definitely slow it down enough that you can scrape by. But yeah, ultimately the use case is just another way to stockpile cards into your graveyard, right? So an easy discard that comes in conjunction with a second Earth card, right? Unlike Fruits where it's just by itself. And then another big powerhouse 6 arcane damage, 3 cost, although unlike Burn Bear, it is still pitchable, right? Because it is a red pitchable, so that's definitely nice as well. Then for Arachne, we have Hunter or Hunted. So 3 cost blue defense reaction with 4 block. When this defends, name a card. The attacking hero reveals the top card of the deck if it's the name card, so that's important, right? So in order for the rest of this to resolve, you have to specifically hit the top card first, right? Banish it, search their hand, deck, and arsenal for up to 3 cards with that name and banish them, then shuffle. So basically, with how this effect works, you're most likely wanting to play it in Arachne Huntsman, where whenever you play a card with contract, which this does have the contract keyword, while it's defending, you're contracted to banish opponent's cards with the chosen name. Whenever you complete the contract, create a silver token. You may look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and then you may put it to the bottom. Most likely, if you're playing this, right, you're not taking that avenue, you're keeping the card on top, so you can guarantee the effect off of Hunter or Hunted, right? So, yeah. Hit the top card, then you get to look at their arsenal, you get to look at their hand, which is just good knowledge to have, right? And then maybe you get that level of disruption where you're yoinking a card out of the hand, maybe a card out of their arsenal, but at the very least you're milling 3 cards from their deck while also, again, getting 4 block out of it, so that is nice. The 3 cost is kind of hefty, but I think balanced around its effect. Maybe it could have been brought down to a 2, so, you know, there's that potential case of you have a resource floating, or generally speaking, you know, you're able to play it off of a yellow, which is definitely a bit more in line with Assassin, right? But you do have to play off of blue with it being a 3 cost, so there is potentially that rough side of it, but at the end of the day, there's also just a blue pitchable for yourself, which definitely helps out what Arachne wants to do. So its effect is very similar to Bonds of Agony, right? Bonds of Agony, those starts with disrupting their hand, and then you get to search their hand again, deck and graveyard, for 3 cards with the name that you've banished from their hand. So yeah, it does have that level of disruption, not as great as Bonds of Agony, but, you know, being played defensively, right? Its main value there, I guess, is the 4 block at 3 cost, and then potentially the 3 mil from deck, and maybe something from arsenal and hand if, again, you luck out with what cards you hit off the top of the deck, right? So it's definitely really nice, right? It's the type of contract support we want to see. So similar to Surgical Extraction and Leave No Witness, it can have that impact where it takes something out of their hand, takes something out of their arsenal potentially, right? Which is definitely really, really nice, which already puts it way ahead of the lesser contract cards that, again, are just milling off the top of the deck and not really having any direct impact on the game. So yeah, it is definitely a really nice contract card to see. So hopefully we see a bit more, and, you know, this is sort of the direction contract continues in, right? A bit more disruptive, right, than just aiming for X card off the top of the deck, and also other ways to set up contract, right, rather than just it being an attack, right? So we have this, and we have the attack reaction, so more of that stuff would definitely be really nice. Now, lastly, we have Backspin Thrust as our Mechanologist action attack, a nice 0 cost 4, so good, right? That's what Mechanologist wants a lot of. And then once per turn, instant, untap a cog, right? So not tap a cog, untap a cog, you control, and then you can give this +1 or go again. So that is very similar to our Sky Skimmer, right? In fact, it's basically the inverse. So Sky Skimmer is also a 0 for 4, but you get to tap a cog to give it +1 or go again. The only sort of issue with Backspin Thrust is you must untap a cog, right? So it means you have to have done something prior to Backspin Thrust in order to set it up. So, for instance, take Spitfire action, tap this, and a cog you control to attack. When it attacks, you may tap a cog you control. If you do, this gains that +1. So generally speaking, Spitfire is the end of your chain, right? Because there's no functional way to give it again unless you get some action points. So in this scenario, you'd want to go Sky Skimmer, right, to tap a cog, Backspin Thrust to untap a cog, and then Spitfire to retap the cog, which is definitely really nice because that is a really good, hefty 1 cog play, right? So that's really cool to see. But again, it's about lining up Backspin Thrust. So there are some better workable ways. For instance, we have our Cogworks Blunderbuss. If you want to afford the 2 costs in order to use it, instant tap cog you control, this card's next attack gets to go again. So Cogworks Blunderbuss would be an easy way to always guarantee that you can get the full use out of Backspin Thrust. But then you just have the ability to be able to untap a cog to feed into some of those other cards. So in general, the main sort of purpose of this is to help your cogs go further, right? Because essentially, what I've noticed from Puffin, copper cogs, okay, they're not fantastic though, so it's really about maintaining those golden cogs and having that continued tempo. So being able to do more with less in that sense, through all the different ways to untap your cogs and reuse the same 1 or 2 is definitely really, really nice. So this should definitely do wonderful things for Puffin, right? So yeah, there we go. There's our 3 expansion slot cards, right? Which are you most excited for? I think from this, just the direction of trying to get contract back on track and competitive is what intrigues me most. So I'm gonna say Hunter or Hunted, but, you know, Backspin Thrust is definitely nice as well, and line up its sleeves. If I was interested in Wizard, would definitely have real immense value. But yeah, there we go. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.